Well, if you're looking elementary school, it was listening for the Hammond Mill. The whistle went off at, I believe, 7:30, and then 8 o'clock. So your life was governed by that Hammond whistle. And school, 9 o'clock, get home from school and promptly go out and play constantly. And my buddy Dale and I spent an awful lot of time down on the Catesy Slough, or we'd ride our bikes down to Powell's Pond and go fishing. And as soon as that 5 o'clock whistle blew, back on your bike and you rode home again, and supper, and summertime obviously we're out playing until it's dark, you know. And winter too, basically. We played outside all the time. I don't recall a lot of people walking per se as they do now for exercise, because everybody worked for a living obviously, and I mean physically worked. So, but the streets of Hammond were friendly. There was never any problems at all. There were no vandals, there were no, you probably got your odd bully around, but everyone had to contend with that sort of thing. But basically, it was just a tiny little working village, blue collar, nothing terribly sophisticated. Dances at the Hammond Hall, it's a big deal. Yeah, everyone had fun.
Ballpark, which was in the middle of the town, where you've now got a lovely little park with trees and a tennis court, was one. Hanging around the, there was a little confectionery store, Eisner store, but nobody had any money. And we just played, we played a lot with each other in each other's yards. If you had bikes, if you were lucky enough to have a bike, you just hang around wherever the rest of the kids were until the 5 o'clock mill whistle. When it went off, we scattered like rabbits home, all of us. Oh, chores. Everybody had a few chickens, fruit trees, garden, so you did a few chores. You went to school at noontime or after school, or if you could escape from school without getting caught. We had a little swimming hole, which actually belonged to the kids in Pitt Meadows, right on the Hammond Road as you're going up the hill. And that used to be kind of a, I think it was an old gravel extraction hole or something. But we would go down and take that over. That was our swimming pool. Good. You obeyed. I mean, a car might come through every half hour, so you had to watch what you were doing. But you rode up and down the streets, and you kind of, you could play on the streets. You could play, we used to play a lot of ball out on the streets as well as at home, and you kicked rocks around and whatever else you could find. It was a very easy situation because, as I said, people knew you. So if you were doing something wrong, a phone call went to your home. And, you know, when you got home, you were faced with what you'd been up to.
It was very folksy, very, by today's standards, a glacial pace. People had time to talk, stop and talk to their neighbors, and it was just it was like Cheers, a place where everybody knew your name, and usually on good terms. It was a much friendlier place, or less, like today, it doesn't matter what community you're in, it seems that there's an ominous quality to things on the street at night, and I think that was always absent in Hammond in those days. It was more family-oriented. There was a lot of hijinks and stuff going on too, but it was more family-oriented, friendly sort of an atmosphere.
Day to day was quiet. Dad would get up and go to work at the mill, and we basically went to school, but it was very quiet, very little traffic. Just a community that was fun to be in because you didn't have to worry about anything. You could leave your doors unlocked, you could leave your cars unlocked, nothing to worry about there.
We'd just go out and play. Mom would say, go out and play and be home at 5 o'clock when the whistle blew. And if we weren't home at 5 o'clock, we got heck. But she didn't even ask us, it's different, she never even asked us where we went. But most times we went over onto Westfield Street because there was a tree we used to climb. Well, we had bicycles. There weren't too many cars. Yeah, we didn't have a car for a long time. And, oh, gosh, I can't remember cars being in the way on the street. It was that quiet. Yeah.
Well, it seemed a quieter place. Like Dad we had a sawdust burner and a wood burning stove. And I remember downstairs there was just a big room that was just for sawdust, and I remember crawling around on top of the sawdust pile. And with Dad being, steadily working at the mill and that, it was like he'd walk to work, and it was sort of a quieter time. And well, like I said, the sidewalk, we even had a sidewalk across from our house, and it was sort of rickety even then. Like, it's still the same sidewalk. And just rolling our bikes down, or rolling down with this wheelbarrow, well, not wheelbarrow, roller skates. And just walking to the stores, and those were the only stores we really knew for dinner. But I remember when it got dark, we'd be playing like kick the can till it got dark, and then went in the house, and it was in our neighborhood, just right in our neighborhood. We had all these games going on, and we got one of the first TVs in the area when I was a teenager. And so we'd have literally neighbors' kids lined up in our living room, sitting on the floor, watching our TV. So that was kind of fun too.
They were the first family that have a television. And just a little story there. They got the television. I delivered the papers at that time, so that was the upper part. And they went to collect, and they said, "Oh, do you want to come and watch television?" I said, "Oh, yeah. I've never seen a television." And so I rode down there in the semi-darkness, whatnot, and the house was pitch black, and so I went up and knocked on the door. "Come on in!" So I went in, I walked in and couldn't see anything, and stepped on somebody's feet, and the floor was covered with kids lying on the. They had every kid in town lying on the floor watching television.
We hung out at the old Hammond Hall. We used to hang out at the old pool hall. We were a little too young to get into the pool hall, but we bought our Coke and our cream sodas and all that at Dunlop's store, Dunlop's confectionery. I can remember we'd meet a lot of times at the hall, at the old Hammond Hall for some reason, because Bobby Killsby was there and Chester was there. I got to know them boys, and they all stayed together in Hammond. They stayed together. It was my greatest time of my life was Hammond.
It was just pretty much going to school, and we loved to roller skate. Oh, that was something else. And there wasn't any place to roller skate because, we had wood sidewalks. And so the only place was uptown at where the red and white store, the Hammond Cash store was. So we used to go up there and roller skate and drive people crazy. Honestly, in front of the bank. Mostly people walked. They really did. Like, I know my dad walked to work and home at lunch and walked back and came back at 5 o'clock. But he, I don't know about other people, but I don't think a lot of people took their cars. And yeah, they used to just park on the street, and they never had a parking lot at the mill or anything for a long time.
At 5 o'clock, the mill whistle went off. That's when you had to be home for supper. But you seemed to be always late for supper and always didn't hear the whistle. That was a standard excuse, but you could hear the whistle in Port Coquitlam sort of thing. But you always had to be floating. You had a raft out in the slough, because after 1948 they dug great big channels all down around where the Morrison farm, the Lindlad farm, eventually was all those channels down right to the mill. And so we build rafts in these little sloughs and pole ourselves along, and out the Catesy slough that ran right out to the highway there by where that mall and stuff is down there. Yeah, we'd pole our way all the way up there. We built a little shack in Norm Groman's yard, which ended up being a weatherman there. And it was it had some wild cherry trees, and so we floated all this lumber down. Built quite a little shack, you know, maybe 6 by 6, 8 by 8 or something like that. And somebody had an old tin chimney up in their garage, so we put a little chimney on it. And it took a couple months to build this thing. And then one of the guy's parents were making the little homemade wine and stuff. So all these cherry trees, wild cherry trees and growing, hey, we should make some wine. So sugar was just, had been rationed, was off the ration thing. So everybody snuck a cup of sugar from home, and like there had been a couple dozen of us all involved over this period of time. Initially, maybe half a dozen started all, but when going to make this wine, everybody got involved. The whole old Mrs. Groman, she's quite German, and she seen the smoke coming out of the chimney. She snuck down the hill and in there and whipped open the door, and here the half a dozen of them normie, oh, get out, you bad boys, and chase us all home, and they're off the property. And then Norm shows up, you know, half an hour later. We got to tear the fort down, you guys. And he's kind of whimpering, well, geez, yeah, your mean old mother. And we kind of chastised Norm for a day or two or something, having to tear our fort down. Well, that was the last of the fort. We didn't rebuild it anywhere else. I think it went into raft material. You just hung out all over the place. As we got kind of, you know, close to delinquent teenagers, I mean, kind of the pool hall, coffee shop sort of thing. But you know, we rode bikes everywhere. So you hung out, like I say, down the wharf, and a couple of the young native guys were you know, have their own boats, so we'd go out fishing with them, and you know, hang out at the wharf, and they'd come into the wharf or something, and hey, you want to go out fishing for a couple hours? Yeah, well, they'd put us to work, sort of thing too. But